Hey folks, another segment here of All Wyse Transformation, having a conversation around mental health, spiritual practice, and self-care. And with all the guests that I have on, they're usually practicing or engaging in something that either caught my eye or really resonated with me, or I've known them for a while and I know their insight and self-care practice, or just they're an awesome person. And one of the folks that I have today with us is Felicia Sloin, who is an awesome person, who is a musician, an artist. And if I've heard her play, I've heard her sing, and it speaks to my soul. And one of the things that I try to really do is like anytime anything speaks to my soul, I really make an effort to reach out. And so I have Felicia here with us to share her journey, her practice, her insight about what does it mean to be a singer, a musician, an artist, and what's all that stuff look like? And welcome, Felicia.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay, I'm so excited.
I can't believe it's actually happening.
Yes, I know. We've been sort of like organizing, trying to like, oh, would this time work? Would that time work?
Yeah,
And I'm glad we finally made it work.
me too.
Yay. Um, so the way that I usually like to start is asking a question for folks to just start us off. What are you curious about these days? What gets your curiosity going?
Um, Gets my curiosity going. I'm curious about how creativity
Hmm.
can heal people of all ages
Hmm.
and how self-expression can kind of come from that. So I kind of lead with that. I have many different hats, different roles that I play. I am a singer, but I'm also a teacher. I teach middle school music right now, and I've
Yay.
been I've taught elementary music. I've taught music classes for families and babies and new parents, and um, I'm a I also am a song leader in the Jewish community. So I have a lot of different roles, and my I'm always curious about how I can uh, either inspire or draw out from people connection to their own heart and their own creativity, or how to yeah either how to like help them feel it or how to help them express it in some way. If that makes
Hmm.
any sense.
Yeah, no, I love that because I've been sort of thinking about what I'm curious about in the sense of what really motivates people, like what really sort of gets people, as you're saying, passionate about something. And sometimes I'm like, is there a particular key element or reading? Like, what are they reading that gets them sort of up and going? Because sometimes for me, I'm curious about why am I more motivated to do certain things and other things? Like, most of it's all important, but like, what really motivates me? And so I've been
Yes.
really trying to sit with that idea about motivation and what sort of sparks it. And
Yeah, and I think as a teacher, it's also I'm my curiosity is about myself, but also how can I elicit it or inspire it in my students, especially middle school students. They have it's hard to be a middle school student. It's
yeah,
really it's
yeah.
hard to be a middle school student. So
And it's
um,
funny because like I try to remember what it's feel like to be a
you
middle school
can't
student.
remember because it was so hard. Because it like you just forget it. It's like childhood.
Are you
You
saying
do
because
it and you're
my
like, that's done.
trauma are you saying my trauma has just blocked it all? Is that
Yeah.
is
It's like middle school. That vault, that's closed. Move on. Yeah.
it's so funny. Like I remember being younger, being like, I can't wait to be an adult. Like, you won't be able to tell me to do anything, and I'm gonna do what I love. And now that I'm
Yeah.
adult, I'm like,
I
this
know.
this
I
is
was
not
such an idiot. Right. I know.
this is
I
not
know.
what I thought being adult would be like. Doing
Oh, it's,
laundry, cleaning my
I know, right?
ugh.
I have to eat a vegetable. Give me a break.
I'm curious, like, how did you teach during the pandemic? How did that look like, that format?
There were iterations. The first iteration was I was so technically not savvy. Really, I struggled. Like I didn't understand like there were just too many things that I didn't understand. And so that was a real barrier for me, the
Mhm.
technical aspects of it. That aside, um once I got kind of used to that, then I had that at that time I was teaching elementary school music at a Jewish day school in Northampton. And it actually was really interesting because like the kindergartners, they just they were young enough that you could just like they knew how to mute themselves, they knew how to unmute themselves. For the most part, they were they would just do what I asked them to do. But
Mhm.
as the kids got older, I was seeing like more kids just like lying around their bed or like just
Oh,
shutting off this, shutting the screen off, or, I'd be like, people walking in and out of the school, like not having privacy. And it made me get, I mean, I will take any opportunity to get creative. I love a challenge. I love a creative challenge. So
mhm.
I did some deep dives into like rhythm things that we could do. I'd be like, okay, everybody, you have 1 minute to go find two pencils. Go, and they'd come back and I'd be like, okay, we're gonna do rhythm now, like da 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 da. Can you do it?
Yeah,
And I'd
yeah,
be like, I
yeah.
know you're muted, but I feel like I can hear you, and you sound really awesome. Another thing I had to put on a Hanukkah show, which I did in person for years and years, but this time I had to do it online, and so I taught all of the sixth graders Oh Hanukkah in sign language so that
Ooh.
you could see on the screen like oh Hanukkah.
Oh,
It was
I
really
love
cool.
that.
So, like trying to work, I love the one of my mantras in my life is that the limits generate the form.
Mm. The limits generate the
The limits generate the form. So
yeah,
whatever situation or box or yeah, whatever limits you find yourself within,
yeah.
you create from there.
Mm.
You don't say like, I guess it's also it's sort of akin to baking versus cooking, or
Mhm.
like they say that baking is a science and cooking is an art. Like you can go into the refrigerator and say, okay, what do I have here? Those are the limits. Like what do I actually have that I don't need to go out and buy?
Right.
And so I have, some vegetables, I have some rice, and that generates the form rather than saying, okay, today I'm going to make a souffle. I need exactly 18 eggs. I need da 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 da. I
Yeah,
need this. So
yeah.
I've lived most of my life with that philosophy of the limits generating the form. And so during the pandemic, I worked within that. I used a lot of puppets, like things that are visual. Like I
Yeah,
was
I
like, okay,
love
what's
that.
visual that I can bring, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did a lot of song circles, like leading. I mean, and it's kind of weird because I'm used to singing in front of an audience, but people loved it. Like
yeah,
they just loved it.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, here I am in my pajama bottoms, like singing, doing this little concert, leading Shabbat, leading children's music circles.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and in some weird way, it was able to bring community together. Shabbat was a big one,
Nice.
like being able to just like light my candles and play my little drum, and people would just show up and
Ooh.
created a sense of community, even though we were all separate.
Hmm. I love that, which is a great segue to why I'm inviting you here to talk about being a musician and what does that look like. And so let's start off with like when you hear the word musician or being a musician or practicing music, like for you, what does it mean to be a musician?
It's interesting because when you sent me the questions, I had a resistance because I don't feel like I really take myself very seriously as a musician, even though
Hmm.
I've been a singer since I was, I mean, probably since I could speak or vocalize, you know. Um, so in some ways it's so much it's like it's like my skin, like it's so much a part of who I am. But I think the fact that I didn't, go to school for professionally to get trained in music, I don't really know how to record music very well. I'm not I think I've focused a lot on what I can't do as a musician, so it's hard for me to step into the role of being like a musician, even though it became very clear to me um after college when I tried to do a 9 to 5 job behind a desk, and I knew that that was not going to work for me. So
Hmm.
I mean, music is one of my great passions. Singing was probably my first real passion. Um, but I just knew that anything that I was going to do long term, I needed to be creative.
Hmm.
So being a musician is part of that. It's not the whole thing. But also, one of the I did this mind map to get prepared. I don't know if you can see it,
Hey!
but like um, being a musician affects um, really so many areas of my life. And
Yeah.
I did some writing about it, and I thought about like being a musician, what it meant to me and my family, and my relationship with my father, who taught me how to sing harmonies when I was 5 years
Hmm.
old.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he comes from a line of musicians, and
Hmm. Hmm.
finding out on Facebook that I have relatives that I don't even know, like all over the world, who are musicians. So like that
Hmm.
it actually is a part of my background, being a musician. But so there's my family, there's a connection with my sister, may she rest in peace. She and I, we really connected mostly through music, and she
Hmm.
was an incredible influence on me and the music that I grew up listening to and now want to share with the world. And then there's the family part. There's the part of my life where I did music in musical theater, and I was every summer and always after school and always in rehearsals, and that taught me not just about music but about discipline. Like I had to be there, I had to memorize my lines. I had from when I was like 8 years old.
Oh.
I would go with my father to he was always involved in community theater, and I would go with him to rehearsals, and I would sit in the back of the auditorium when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, and I would just watch the rehearsals. And if somebody missed a line, I knew their line. I would be like, "Oh, you're supposed to say da 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 da," and then walk over there. Like I was just that kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, so that part of my life, being in musical theater, and then having a shift later on and being like, it's not really very satisfying for me to sing, like to do musical theater. That became something I didn't want to do, something as performative. I stopped singing for a period of like 7 years. I switched over. I started learning sign language.
Oh.
My mother was mortified. She was like, how are deaf people going to hear you sing? I was like, Mom, um, but it was in some ways true. Like
Yeah.
I was so identified as a singer that to stop singing and do something that didn't come as naturally to me, to learn how to sign and be in this different culture. I went to Gallaudet University for a semester while I studied at Oberlin College, and I remember walking in the first day and I was like, "Hi, my name is Felicia," and the person behind the desk was like, "I'll get the hearing man for you." Just knowing like I was so awkward, and that was another part of my life where I just didn't make music at all. And
Yeah.
then Judaism, which was not a part of my life very much. I did not have a good experience growing up with Judaism, but then moving to the Bay Area in California and meeting all of these really progressive Jewish people who were musicians and artists and puppeteers, and then realizing that I had a calling to lead people in prayer,
Mm, mm.
and how that shifted my singing, because that was a totally different kind of singing than like da 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 da. This was like yeah nine 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 nine, and I knew instantly that I could connect to people's hearts,
Yeah, yeah.
specifically in the Jewish community. And that was a whole other avenue. And learning not just music, but like, thank God I learned how to read Hebrew when I was a kid. I didn't learn what it meant, but I knew how to read it. So I was able to learn all of this new material, and but it was all through music. And then the journey of becoming a mother, and what music meant to me as a mother, and starting mother and baby music groups, and teaching teaching kids to have rhythm and dance. And I mean, it's touched every aspect of my life.
You made a distinction between sort of music in the sense of a spiritual practice and music in the
Mhm.
sense of entertainment. And I'm
Yes.
and I'm I know I sent you some questions, but that's
Oh,
the
questions. It really all led to this,
oh
which
good.
really helped me just kind of get in the mindset for today. So I'm good to go wherever you want to go.
Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you could say a little bit more about that difference because I really felt that distinction I'm hoping that you could tease that out a little bit more about like that sense or that feel, the difference of using space for spiritual energy or vibration or just creating spiritual space in a sort of singy song or humming or mantra
Yes.
or
Oh,
like
it
what for you like if my question makes sense, what's the difference between using music or song compared for spiritual practice and then using for entertainment? I'm
Yes.
curious about
So
your
I,
thoughts on
I I
that.
use the word performative. So
Oh,
like
performative.
there's the performative, which is you know from 8 years old, when what and then when I was 14, like taking lessons and learning how to train my voice, and learning like vocal care and vocal hygiene, right? Like all of those things, so that I could get up on stage and perform in front of audiences and take on a role. And I was very good at that. Very good at like reading other people's lines, and that was a wonderful training, and it was a great way for me to build community. I didn't have a very cohesive family, so that became like a family. But when I went to college, I realized that, like, when I was in my small town growing up, I was like the hot shot. But when I went to college, everyone around me was like this great performer. So I think my confidence took a hit, and I I stopped singing because I just didn't feel like like I said before, I didn't feel like I really wanted to keep singing other people's words, or it just didn't feel the same. But when I did discover singing, and it's not just singing, I love this question. I'm grappling with it a little bit, because I know that it's an important question specifically for me. Um, I what I do is, when I'm leading a service or in that spiritual setting, I'm definitely still performative. I am a performer. Like, there's no question about that. You can't take that out of me. But it goes I'm leading from a different place. So in Hebrew, the word is kavana, which means intention.
Mm,
So even if I'm singing in a song in Hebrew that I don't understand, like I
mm,
don't speak fluent, I'm not fluent in Hebrew, yet I have been leading, at this point, thousands of people in prayer, coast to coast, for over 2 decades. That's my dog, Gracie.
hey
Oh,
Gracie.
Gracie, she's just gonna make herself comfortable.
Well, that's what
Um,
Gracie does.
and I, so how does one lead people in prayer? in a meaningful way, which I do, not knowing what I'm singing often. I mean, I know what I'm singing, but I just don't know the word for word, right? And the answer is kavana, it's intention. So if I'm singing a prayer at Yom Kippur, for example, the Day of Atonement, which is very contemplative, very serious, I imagine the intention. I actually write it in my prayer book. I'll say like this, like I'm imploring, I'm humbling, um I'm praising, and that comes through. So it almost doesn't matter what the words are. Yesterday, I was working with a group of Jewish middle school students, and I said, so we're gonna sing, and they were like, no, we're not. I mean, really, asking middle school students to sing is just a hard thing for them to do.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
most
yeah.
self-conscious,
Yeah.
it's really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why don't we just pick something that you already know? It doesn't have to be in Hebrew. And I was like, what should we sing? And they were like, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I said, oh, okay. Do you all know? They were like, no, the ABC song. And I was like, okay, does everybody know the ABC song? They were like, yeah. And I started to sing it, and they all sang it, even
Nice.
though they were like A, B, C, D, E, N, N, but they sang.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And that's, to me, that was a huge win because it's not so much of a shift. I mean, I can sing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Like, I don't care what the words are. It doesn't matter if it's in Hebrew or Yiddish or gibberish. And even in Judaism, we have these melodies that are called nigunim, which are melodies that are it's just syllables that you sing. So it's like yana nine na na nine 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 yana nine na na nine 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 nine, and anybody can sing that. It doesn't have, but you can still have a kavanah. You can still have an intention. This this melody that I'm going to sing is going to uplift us,
Mm,
and that's where I'm leading from. Or this melody is going to take us down,
mm,
or this melody is going to start down, but it's going to bring it up as we, and I get to control that,
mm, mm.
as the conductor or the leader. What do you think, Gracie?
Gracie agrees, right, Gracie? I see you, Gracie. I for folks who haven't seen you perform, beautiful. At your last performance that I saw, it was what was it in December? What was it in?
No, yeah. Oh,
Was was
yes, it was the solstice.
the solstice? Yeah.
Oh, Lisa, yeah.
And you did this I forget it was like a poem or there was a song that you did that really resonated with me, and it was you singing, and I forget like um uh the what you called it, or the
Do you want
title.
to leave?
Yeah, do I think it's do
Do
you
you want to leave? Think
yeah.
we stay rooted, afraid to start flying. Was it that one?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I'm curious about like your creative format. Like, where do you have to be headspace wise to come up with a song, or what inspires you for creating a song, or like, oh, that's a really good melody. Because like singing the ABCs, like the way that you just did it, for someone who's not talented, that sounded really, really good. Or, if I was to sing ABCs, it would be like A B ABC. So it would really tap my insecurities to have somebody hear me. And so I'm always curious about like the creative process, and to put it out there. So that's question number one. And
Mm-hmm.
then like this, I love this idea that music has been like part of your life. in some form or fashion. It sort of like appeared either through your dad teaching you, or through school, or through religious spiritual practices, or just you just singing in the bathroom. I would imagine about.
There's a lot of shower singing. A lot. A
And so
lot of
and
shower.
so I'm curious, like how do you, maybe you don't tease it out, right? Because I'm thinking like the creative process is a specific skill
I love this question.
compared to like you're just talented, right?
Oh well, oh go on.
You are, and I've heard you sing, and for folks who also, because on your Facebook, sometimes I think you put stuff on. If I
Sometimes,
you,
yeah.
you haven't put anything on lately.
No.
The stuff that you have put on, I'm like, girl, who are you? Like, yes, please, give me more of
Oh.
that. Give me a whole lot more of that. And so I know I'm shooting a lot at you. And
No,
so
I understand. It's gelling in here and
oh, oh good, good, good. But I think one, I I'm always fascinated by how talented people can do what they do. And I guess I'm always trying to figure out like how do they do it? How do they sort of like, and I hear you, right? It's a form of, dedication to the art and practicing, um, just practicing whatever, educating yourself more. But also it seems really innate. It seems like just like a second skin for you.
it's creativity is. I wouldn't say that I'm not I've never been a very disciplined person who's going to sit and like play scales or sing scales, for hours and hours. I've never been that kind of singer, and I think that that's one of the reasons I've hesitated to call myself a musician because I see a musician. I mean, when I was at Oberlin, there were people who went to the conservatory who were like in that conservatory all day playing. They were musicians. You know, I studied voice at the Oberlin Conservatory. Even though I was in the college, I was able to study voice. And I mean, they were their schedules were like jam packed, music theory, music history. So I don't really have a great practice in that way, but I think that the through line for me personally, and I don't think that this is everybody's through line, is that I've shifted because the limits generate the form, right? So when
Mm,
I
mm,
when I stopped when I got to Oberlin, but for better or for worse, and I realized that I was not like the biggest fish in the pond anymore, and that somehow triggered my insecurity and somehow gave me my brain the message like, oh, you're not a singer anymore,
mm,
right?
mm.
Then I was like, well, then what am I? Well, what am I going to do now? And that I just turned my focus to sign language. And I was like, well, that's cool. I've always wanted to learn sign language. I thought that was really interesting. So I became curious about it and I went down that rabbit hole and it wasn't really, it was kind of a rabbit hole. And I did that. And then that also became part of Gracie, take it easy. Got to edit that out. That also became part of the fabric that, it's like and my mother's curiosity of like, how are deaf people going to hear you sing? Like, if you only identify as like, if I only was a singer,
Yeah,
I would have been totally shut off to that whole world that
yeah.
I would never have had access to. But now, because I closed that door for a while and I entered into this whole different realm and I observed a different culture and I did the best that I could with the language, as clunky as I was. But then I was able to take that, and that became part of what I then later would incorporate into my teaching or or teaching kids oh Hanukkah in sign language.
Mm, mm.
Not just because I like learned it on YouTube, but because I went and like really delved into it. And then and one of my favorite things to do, and since my kid has been in the world, is writing puppet shows.
Oh,
And that was a whole other like I visited a friend in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Center for Puppet. She was working at the Center for Puppetry Arts. This was right after college, and I met all these puppeteers, and I was like, "Oh my God, these people are wildly creative. Like they literally make their own friends." If that is not so awesome, I don't know what is. And I just got so inspired by it. Was I trained? I didn't study puppetry. I mean, I wish I had, but like even that. So I just picked up something like from there, like, and I saw enough about how as a performer I was able to see like you had to make the puppet look like it was actually talking, and you had to like those are things that I think innately as a performer I was able to pick up on. So that became part of my shtick later on. You know, it all kind of weaves together, and I don't think it ever stops.
Huh.
Like as my kid got older, I just went from doing baby stuff with puppets, and then I became an elementary music teacher, and I was like, well, what's this all about? What do elementary kids like? Just anything that I found interesting. I did a deep enough dive so that I could kind of understand it and then pass it on
Yeah.
and incorporate it into my work. I became really interested at one point many years ago in belly dancing because I met a belly dancer and I was like, oh, that feels good. I like that, you know, or
Yeah.
like how just the movements. I really
Yeah.
liked it. I liked the culture. I liked the clothes. I liked the music. I loved the
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
And that led me to be interested in Middle Eastern drumming. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I studied that. And I've been belly dancing for years, not even realizing that it was totally helping me develop my core. And
Hmm.
those muscles are the muscles you use for singing. So it's kind of been this like
Ah.
very
Yeah.
interesting tapestry where I've always kind of felt like a jack of all trades but a master at none. But I don't think that that's really true. I think that it's kind of how I live my life. It's kind of like a collage.
Hmm. I love that. That's so beautiful in the sense of like if you believe in sort of like a bigger sort of sense of fate, fate, where things sort of just come and either you do the choice and you take it or you don't, and but it's sort of revealing itself in a very sort of
Yes.
pattern kind of way.
And as I've gotten older, I've been able to tune in more and pay attention to when I get a yes or a no. So like, and I didn't even realize it was happening when I was younger, but you know, like I was exposed to sign language and I got a big yes. Like yes. Or puppets, yes. Mm-hmm. Drumming, yep. Oh yeah. Belly dancing, yes.
Mhm.
Skiing, no. We were just talking about skiing.
We were just talking about
No,
that.
no, no, no,
To catch
no. I know everybody on the planet loves it. No.
to catch folks up, so we were just sort of talking offline in the sense of, getting together in the sort of winter, and I was like, I don't do anything in the snow that doesn't require me shoveling it. And Felicia's like, I'm there. Let's have
I'm so there.
some hot chocolate, hot toddy, and just
Yeah.
like and just sit.
Yes. Yes. Or sing. Fine,
Or
whatever. Make
sing.
art.
Or
Make
sing,
art.
yeah. Or
So
make art.
I've
Um,
definitely been very intuitive about like I get a very strong internal yes or no about a lot of things. I mean about like interests and people and even music.
yeah.
You know, I'll hear a song, I'll be like, "Yep, middle schoolers would love that."
Yeah. I
Oh,
do want to circle back to that particular
yeah.
statement, but I do want to ask you, so how do you bring your practice into your personal life? Like is there into your personal life? How do you sort of bring your practice, or is it all one? Or is your personal life separate from um being a
I
musician?
feel like I don't, I mean, to be very honest, I don't feel like historically I've done my personal life as as well as I as I do. Like I don't feel like I'm as intuitive necessarily. Um I f- and that was an issue for a long time, um because I felt like I had a very Gracie, if you want to be on my lap, you got to play by the rules. Okay. Um, so I think that I Well, I spent a lot of time alone as a child, a lot. And so I think that that led me to have a very rich inner world. But
Hmm.
I don't think that it helped me develop the ability to um, maintain intimate relationships easily.
Hmm.
So I don't think that these skills are necessarily transferable, and that maybe in some ways it was a detriment to me because I could always see, especially when I was single, I could see so many possibilities. You know, I would meet somebody who was totally not like me or not compatible with me, but they were attractive to me because there was something really interesting about them. And I would like get into relationships with people because there was like that spark. Because I can get sparked by a lot of different things. So because I didn't have a good barometer about intimate relationships, I wasn't taught those things as a child. I didn't really learn how to navigate that. I think becoming a mother was the thing that really helped me. And even being a mother like requires a consistency and an intimacy that and a letting go. Like
Hmm.
requires all of those skills that are challenging for me. And
Hmm.
it's the best thing ever. And you know, my kid is my greatest teacher and my greatest inspiration.
Hmm.
But I don't know if I am even answering the question.
Well,
Um,
I definitely resonate with this, for me at least, right? You know, speaking for myself, in the sense of like feeling there's this sort of like innate talent, or there's this just born just these natural skills. And you know, we were talking this about this offline, where I really was always drawn to being a therapist, and what does that look like, and what is a therapist, you know, how do, you know, people, you know, sit in compassionate spaces. And so I don't necessarily think that I've done a good job myself in turning that off, where I feel like I'm well, number one, I've always known that I wanted to be a therapist. And so like since the earliest age, and like the earliest I can remember was like maybe 11 or so, that this was the path I was going to take, and not really knowing what that was going to look like, or even knowing what format I was going to take, you know, because as an individual who still struggles with depressive symptoms, um, going to a therapist was one of the things that really saved my life. And I was like, huh, I think I like this format
yes.
of sharing, because I grew up in a family where we didn't talk about feelings.
Yeah.
And so to try to translate some of this stuff, you know, because I've been in a relationship where the guys that I'm dating, they're like, don't therapize me, like don't. And I'm like, I don't mean to be insulted, but I don't know how to turn it off. Like
Right.
I feel like you're right. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily, like, the things that you're really good at doing
Mhm.
that comes natural to you doesn't necessarily translate into sort of other things.
It reminds me of the conversation we were just having here about performative versus like from the heart. Like, you know, there's ways in which I feel like performing is natural for me. Not performing is not natural. And that's the thing that's like
Yeah,
the authenticity
yeah,
and the consistency
right.
is what I am challenged by. And I really, I mean, I'm being very honest here.
Yeah,
I'm still really challenged by that.
yeah,
And
yeah. And you know, I've had relationships end because either I'm so much into that
yes,
mindset, or I back off so much that it sort of leaves this void, and the relationship sort of just falls apart. And so you know, in my personal life, I haven't really found a good balance. And I'm still working on it, right? And
yeah.
there are some people that it doesn't, trying to therapize everything, it just doesn't work.
I think that this is why I really enjoy teaching because it does give me an opportunity to show up and be performative, but at the same time, really cultivate my authenticity. Because students, let's face it, like kids, doesn't matter what age, they can smell inauthenticity a mile away, right? And so they're
Yeah,
not going to
yeah,
vibe with you if you're
yeah.
like, if I'm constantly performing, they're
Hmm.
not going to be interested in what I have to offer.
Right.
But if I can drop that and be there, really be present, even though it's a challenge, and it might leave me with a terrible headache at the end of the day, or I have to come home and take a nap, or I feel like whatever is going on.
Yeah.
I like that it makes it. It's. I mean, I could easily imagine a life in which I would have, wanted to be a Broadway performer. And I think I had the skills and the talent to go that route. I just didn't have the confidence. And I think that that would not have been a good path
Mm.
for me to be performative all the time.
Yeah.
That was not my path in this lifetime. I really feel like I was supposed to, you know, bump into some walls that led me in a lot of different
Hmm.
directions, and into a lot of different spaces and communities, and challenged me to show up and be present
Yeah.
and perform. Da, 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 da,
Uh,
da.
so going back to that little placeholder, like can you identify the yes? Like when you, is it like a yes, this is the direction I should go in. Like yes, this is the next project that's resonating with me. Like is that like an intelligent or sort of like a cerebral decision, or is that like an intuitive decision?
I've never really thought about it. That's such a good, you're so good at asking questions. Um, I don't know.
Okay.
It's just something that when you ask it, I feel it in my solar plexus. So
Hmm.
there's some connection to my solar plexus that's like,
Hmm.
yeah, that I want to do that. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
and it can even be like, yes, I want to work at that school. Like, yes, that's the place. Or I mean, it also has led me into some not great choices too. Like, it's not foolproof, right? Like, having a highly refined yes and no system can also lead, and
Yeah.
also it's not like I'm not gonna become a millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have chosen a lifestyle that where I live below my means, or maybe I live at my means, but my means are not very high. And it does limit me in some ways, but the balance is that I leave room for creativity in my
Hmm.
life. So
Hmm.
um, one of the things that I really appreciate about my time, and my experience working in the Jewish community as a creative in the Jewish community is that there's always another holiday coming up. So when my role, I used to do a lot of like family programming, and when my son was, in elementary school, and I was really doing a lot with elementary students, there was always a holiday that I could be, I would take these stories and books and I would just write them into musical puppet shows.
Hmm.
Like, so so much fun. And then
Hmm.
of course I have like people that I collaborate with who I love to work with. So um again, the limits generate the form. Like, the limits are like, we have this holiday coming up. What is the form going to be? And I thrive in that vortex. Like, what is the form going to be?
Hmm.
So I like having the holidays because it gives me a different format, a different it gives me different limits in which I can
Hmm.
create something new. And I don't do that as much now, but even with teaching now, like, what's this unit going to be that I'm going to do with my middle school students? We're going to study genres. How are we going to do that? I'm going to create slideshows, and I'm going to, we're going to, like, there is still a lot of creativity in what I get to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it just, it just changes based on what I'm getting paid for and what I'm, mostly what I'm getting paid for because I have to get paid. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What do you find being rewarded or rewarding about what you do?
um, I love collaborating. I don't get to do it enough. I love um, I love connecting with people, and I love the challenge of getting a group of people to sing, especially the reluctant ones. I thrive on that. I love getting people to sing. I really love getting people to pray.
Mm, mm,
Like if I can get, or even getting people to not necessarily pray, but to like go deeper. If I'm
yeah.
leading if I'm leading a group, if I'm leading it at school, every Friday we have singing, and last week we sang "Lean on Me" because there had been this like flood in the school the day before, and everybody had to come together with buckets, and so we sang "Lean on Me" the next day, so we could talk about like coming together as a community and helping out, um and just getting, and I was like, I don't care if you're a student or a teacher or a parent, or if I was like, everybody here knows this song and everybody here needs somebody to lean on. So we're going to all sing it together. Okay? So I need to see everybody sitting up, and I need everybody like really trying to get people to rise to their higher self. And if I can get them to sing, awesome. And if not, they can clap along. And if not, they can just take it in.
Mm, mm.
There's many different levels that people can participate, but I really love engaging people in that way.
And it's interesting that you say it because I feel like, and maybe it's all with all performers or musicians, like when I've seen you sing, you're in it. You're just like you're just there. Like it's for me, it's like the example of what it means to be mindfulness, right? Like, and I think you said like um with sort of the Jewish tradition where it has to sort of be intentional, right? Like there's an intention that you have to put out there. And when I've seen you sing, you're literally there. And I um, do you realize you're doing that, or does it just come natural to you? And it doesn't necessarily isn't maybe it isn't a question, but it's just me really admiring your ability to just be present with music, the lyrics, the space that you're in. You just really embody the mindfulness practice when you're singing. And so maybe it's me sending you a compliment and not really a question.
I I take it. That's really, really nice to hear. And yeah, it's not something that like I ever went to school for or really studied in a formal way. Um I kind of wish I had in some ways, like if I had gone to cantorial school and I had like, really, really developed those skills. But um, but if I did that path, I wouldn't have had the other experiences that I had. And I think sometimes that singing is the thing that brings me to that place rather
Mm,
than like me being mindful all the time and then singing is just a reflection of that. I think sometimes I'm like, "Ah!" Now I'm gonna
yeah,
sing,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and it does really come down to kavana, intention.
yeah.
Like even last night, I did a Zoom gathering and I sang. for a group of Jewish women when we were honoring the hostages, those who've come home and those who are still in Gaza, and even just being separate from everybody, like just being on this couch with my guitar and my drum here singing for people. I was like, I imagined that the words that I was singing were like almost could were like flying out of my mouth and like going out into the
Yeah.
like if there's a heart that can shift with these words, make it happen, make it happen. And the comments were so sweet. One woman put in the chat after I sang one song, she said, I felt like I could breathe again.
Hmm.
You know, everybody was so on edge. I mean, it was just a
Hmm.
very intense gathering. And I think that that's sort of what I do, but I
Yeah.
don't know how or why I can do that. It's not like I grew up, you know, I did not grow up praying or really having an affection for Judaism because I didn't. I really didn't. Um, and it's not just Jewish. It's also it's other. I mean, the Jewish community is open to what I have to offer because I'm a Jewish person and I sing this music. But you know, I do like I try to do it with middle schoolers too, even though they're much more resistant
Yeah.
to you know.
So yeah, so there's something about music or singing that you have to use your body. There's
Oh
some
yes,
there's something about
it's
singing.
very intimate,
Yes, very, very intimate,
very intimate.
and to think or to sort of conceptualize the idea that you're using this very intimate energy to send out for healing, to send out for helping somebody sort of change their perspective or whatever you're doing. I feel like that's some heavy
There's
magic.
some mojo, right?
There's some there's some real
There's
mojo.
some mojo. Yeah, and I don't even think that I realized that for a long time. Um, and I don't think I really appreciated that not everybody can do it. Like you can be a great singer, but not everybody can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that's really unique.
yeah.
I've never really talked about this before. So it's so amazing to be able to like actually put into words like what I do because there's so many different elements and different ways that I do it. But I don't even know where I'm going with that.
Wait,
But
so let's.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
No, so looking at your what was it, the little write-up that you did,
Oh
the
yeah, my little my mind map, my
your
music
mind map.
mind map.
So I want you to pick one little thing that came out for you on your mind map and share. I don't want to. I'm curious. Was there fear on there? Did I see fear?
No. Yes. Yes. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
you don't
That
you
should
don't
have
have,
been.
you don't have to pick that, but I'm just curious if you could pick like one or two things off
I
of.
can talk about fear.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Let's do it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
because okay, I'll tell you what fear. Fear and music for me, or fear specifically with singing, was so I when I was growing up, my in a conservative Jewish community, um, that I just did not vibe with. I did not resonate with it at all. I had a bat mitzvah and I stopped going altogether for many, many years. Um, but one of my fears was that if I wasn't a good person or I wasn't a good girl, that I would be punished by God. God would punish me. And I think that what once I started realizing at an early age that singing made me special, like that I mean I didn't know what to do with it, but like I knew that I had something and I knew that it was different, it was unique. um then the fear that it could get taken away if I was bad.
Oh,
So I did live with that, or the fear that like I somehow it would be exposed that I wasn't really that good or other people were better, because I was also very like grew up in a very competitive, I was very competitive household. So um it's like we couldn't all just be gifted artists or musicians. Like one of us was, it had to be one or the other. And so um I think fear really stopped me from singing, also stopped me from applying to Oberlin Conservatory. I was like,
Mm.
I was like, I'm never gonna get in. I couldn't. So I went to the college and took lessons at the conservatory. But when I was pregnant, I was working at a synagogue as a cantorial soloist for a couple of years, and one of my first tasks was to record a CD for to introduce myself to the community. And while I was recording, my voice gave out. Like I couldn't say, it felt like I was trying to like sing on gravel or like sing through gravel. It was,
Yeah.
I'd never experienced anything like that before, and I freaked out. I was like, "Oh my God, it happened. It happened. I can't sing anymore." Like I mean, of course I was like
Right.
catastrophizing, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What I found out was that hormonal changes in women often lead to vocal shifts and vocal changes. And I'd never come up against that before. I was always just somebody who I didn't ever even I never even warmed up. I would just show up and be like la, and like it would just all happen. But suddenly I had like my deepest fear came true, and I couldn't sing.
Right.
And it was, oh my gosh, I can't even express how scary that was. And that's happened several times where I since then I've like where I just lose my voice, and then I have to be like, okay, and I have to kind of talk myself down and say, this is not a permanent thing, you know. I mean, now I'm in menopause, but like, back then, like, is it that time of the month? Is it like I had to like, and then I did some research and I learned that like opera singers long ago would like plan their performances around their cycles,
Oh,
their menstrual cycles, because of the hormonal shifts in singing. Like, so fear, fear that somehow that my voice would get taken away, or that if I didn't, you know, if I like smoked pot, or if I did something that was like not healthy, that I would get punished by, that God would take my voice away.
it's so interesting because like when you first said that, the picture that came into mind was like Little Mermaid. From the
Yes.
when her voice gets taken away, I'm
And
like,
she's like,
Felicia, no!
I know, I know. Yeah, but when you first feel that, when you're like, I've been up there at high holidays in front of hundreds of people leading services up there in front, and my voice is just not going to do it. And I have to lean to my person who I'm leading with and say, I'm done.
Mm.
I'm done. You need to take it home. I mean,
Yeah,
it usually doesn't happen at the beginning,
yeah, yeah,
but it's scary. And it, I mean, that also speaks to the pressures of like being a performer and knowing that like live performance, you have one shot. You don't get to edit it. You don't get to, and if your voice gives out, okay, well, thank you. What, we're done here.
yeah, yeah.
'Cause- and the pressures, like I just remember, especially when Whitney Houston died.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm.
Because Whitney Houston was such, I mean, Whitney Houston, I
Yeah.
studied Whitney Houston. I watched how she held her face and her mouth, and how she held her hands, and what every single thing that she did as a performer, I watched. And I don't think that there's another singer like her. I just showed my middle school students her singing the Star Spangled Banner because we're studying anthems,
Yeah.
and I was like, "You all need to sit up
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because Whitney Houston
Yeah.
is going to sing the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
Thanks, thanks to the internet and to YouTube, that I can show them that now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And like it boggles my mind. There's gonna be a whole generation that's not gonna know who Whitney is. Like it's just like
Not on my watch. Not on my watch. I'm sorry. Whitney Houston for me was everything.
yeah, yeah.
And but then just kind of watching her trajectory and watching how the pressure to perform, the fact that she had like all of her closest people relied on her for their livelihoods, the fact that people bought tickets and that she had to be up, she had to be down, she had to be up, she had to be down. I was like, I mean, on certainly no level to compare it to, but like I had a lot of compassion for that. That like, of course you're gonna do drugs. Like the pressure to perform, and then what that does, and how lonely it can be.
Yeah.
There's been many years where I'll lead high holidays for hundreds of people and go home and eat a bowl of cereal by myself.
Mm,
Everybody's out like having these beautiful dinners and everything, and I'm like, wiped out, going home and eating a bowl of cereal. It's like the least glamorous thing.
mhm, mhm.
But her death really, really affected me. And I was
Yeah,
like, that's
yeah,
what being a performer can be like.
yeah, yeah. And I think like for me, just hearing you speak, right? As someone who's made attempts at performing, awful. I was just like, I'm not doing that again. But the feeling or the idea that I have a glitch, my voice stops, with your story, but you keep going, right? Like I'm gonna do, like for me, it was like I tried singing the Star Spangled Banner, awfulest decision I've ever made.
That is the hard. Why would you? That's like, oh, I decided to take piano lessons, so I'm going to learn Rachmaninoff or whatever. I mean, like, why would you do? That's the hardest song to sing.
I did not know this.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll sing it. And
It has the highest and the
let me
lowest.
let me tell you, singing in front of an audience, the basketball team of like cheerleaders, Felicia, it was dreadful.
Oh
It
my God.
dreadful. And like I couldn't even yeah, no, no. What was I thinking?
And the rocket's red glare. That our flag was still there. Why would you sing? Oh
Awful,
my God. You need to go out and
awful,
do some karaoke.
awful,
You need to get that
awful,
out of your
awful.
system.
And so like ever since then, it's like I'm never singing. And when I do sing, I sing in the shower or I sing in my car where nobody could hear me.
We're going to do
I
karaoke.
don't do karaoke. I don't do karaoke.
Yes,
The
we have
flashbacks,
to.
the flashbacks, the faces on those people's faces when they saw me singing. I was like,
It's seared into your brain. Well, and also like one of the things that I've noticed since the pandemic is like the attention span of, I mean, I sing a lot in front of like kids, right? But like they have to be trained now, like how to be at a live performance. Like I often will stand up there and I'll be like, I can see you, right? Like I'll say, I don't care. I'll say it in front. I'll be like, I can see you. I'm here. I'm right in front of you, and I'm looking at you. And I'm not performing for you. I'm leading a song, and first of all, I expect you to sit up, and I expect that your eyes are on me, and I expect that you're making an effort to engage. Either you're clapping or, like what I said before, like you're clapping, you're singing, you're doing, like I give options, but like this is not like we're not living in a world where you can just turn your screen off because you want to check out.
yeah,
We
yeah.
need to reteach children how to, not just children, I mean everybody, but like you can,
Well, we could start
children are
off
the
there.
easiest.
We could
You
start
start
off.
with children. Like we need to make it a norm that, you know, I think everybody's so used to just
Yeah,
being, like in their own little worlds, that
yeah, yeah.
another thing that I think is a gift of being a performer is being able to break through that
Yeah,
this and
there, yeah,
like really
yeah.
try to engage with people.
And that's why, and we are going to end, which
Mhm.
makes me sad because
To be continued.
I've been loving having this conversation with you, and not saying anything about my other guests, but I have to say that I probably laughed more in this interview than I
You
think I
didn't know how funny I am?
did. I knew how funny you are. I
Oh
just
my gosh. Looks aren't everything. I, when you asked me at first, I said no because
yeah.
I was like I sing in front of people, but I don't talk. But you are probably the one person who could get me to do this,
Yeah.
and I'm so appreciative. But did you have a
Yeah,
something you?
well,
Yeah.
one, thank you so much for doing this, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share and sort of be a little bit exposed with me, and then whoever's going to be watching this, and because that
Hi,
takes.
mom. No, she's
uh,
watching from heaven.
Aw, yay. And so I usually like to end with what advice or feedback would you give to folks who are thinking about being a musician or thinking about going into the arts or thinking about being a singer? Like what advice or feedback or insight would you give folks who are thinking about taking this journey on?
I guess I would say be open to many different possibilities. Like I have a lot of my students will be like, "Well, I want to be like Taylor Swift. I want to be famous like Taylor Swift." Like that's their idea of what a singer is, right? When I was starting out as a singer, I thought that being like what I would do would be go to Broadway. Like that's the logical conclusion. So I had no idea that my life would take me in so many different directions that I would then weave together to create this like kind of weird collage hybrid career that I've made for myself. But I guess I would just say like be open to the fact that it might not look like what you think it looks like because you don't know what all the possibilities are. So, and pay attention to the yeses. Like take that drumming class, learn how to belly dance if that's your thing. Like whatever you feel drawn to, explore it and don't just think like singing. Yes, it's definitely like like there's that part of being a singer, but there's also, I mean, I never in a million years thought belly dancing could be connected to singing, except that my core muscles are really pretty strong and that helps my singing, or that singing might be connected to being a member of a community and helping people celebrate holidays and rituals, life rituals, or being a teacher. So I guess I would just say like explore it all and don't
Hmm.
and you can be a musician without being Taylor Swift. You
Yeah.
don't have to sell out to 70,000, like I mean, God bless Taylor Swift. I'm a Swiftie. I love Taylor Swift, but like there's so many different ways. And I
Yes.
think for
Yes.
a long time I thought, well, I'm not Taylor Swift, so I'm not a musician. So I would just say like, you know, there's so many ways to pursue a creative life
Yeah.
and don't limit yourself and collaborate. Find out what other people are doing. Find out what other genres sound like. Learn something from somebody that you feel like you don't have anything in common with. That's very valuable. My time spent in the deaf community, oh my god, it was the first time in my life that I did not know what the hell was going on in my classes because I just couldn't understand. I was literally like, I mean, I grew up labeled talented and gifted, whatever that means, right? but this was the first time in my life where I was like, I don't understand. What is the homework? Like, what? We're having a test today? When did you say? There was like, ha ha ha. I announced it last week. You must have not understood.
Mm,
So I I thrive in discomfort,
mm, mm,
fortunately or unfortunately, and also I guess I'll end with saying the limits generate the form. So
mm,
whatever situation you're in, see if you can figure out what you can get out of it, how you can turn it into something.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for gracing me with your time and presence and
My God. And
insight.
thank you so much for agreeing to go to karaoke with me. No, but we are due for a visit, so it doesn't have to involve karaoke.
All right, folks. We're gonna pause here, letting you know the conversation will still continue, but thank you, Felicia, for joining me for this particular segment of All Wise Transformation, conversation, mental health, spiritual practice, and self-care.
Oh, God bless.
See ya.